I'm fine. I'm fine. Are you up in Chicago or where are you at right now? Okay, no, it sounded like I don't know if you're a little more distant or so than normal. So anyway, that's I see. I see. Okay, well, I hope you're able to breathe well here. Okay, here we go. Good, good. You're gonna like this intro that I'll give you here. Okay. Well, consider this. Opening for our next guest, who may be our most prolific guest on Tri-City Sports now, was Steve Forbes, the head coach of the East Tennessee State head men's basketball coach, and then the mayor of Johnson City, David Tomita. And now we go to Jerry Bonkowski of NBCSports.com to talk a little bit about this current scene in NASCAR and the Monster Energy Cup, the race in Atlanta at the, what did they call this? I still can't get this right. The Folds of Honor of 500 of, I just wish it was still the Dixie 500, Jerry. But anyway, Kevin Harvick having a wonderful week, wins Xfinity and the Monster Cup Series. I guess, tell me a little bit about how did Harvick dominate these two races?
Well, I think that this is a very pivotal year for Stewart-Haas Racing.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't perform as well as they wanted to last year. Sure, they got the Daytona 500 with Kurt Busch, and that Harvick had a fair season and they had a decent season, but I think that they wanted to come out of the gate very strong this year, and I think they have in the first two races. And Harvick, he's always liked Atlanta. Like you said, he won the Xfinity race on Saturday, and a better place to do to double up than to win the Cup race on Sunday.
I know that last year he led, and then there were some troubles going on, so sort of a vindication of sorts. Of course, the other thing about this race, I was curious if it was even going to get underway. It was originally supposed to be at 1, but then the rains came from the heavens, and I guess it started when? At about 3:30 or so, going into the evening. A question is, we talked a little bit about the surface of the track, and it's a little rough at Atlanta. Does that have more or less of a factor after a rain delay? I know they drive the track, but what kind of a factor would such a rain delay have on the race?
Well, it would be the same at Atlanta as it would be at, let's say, Bristol or any other place. The rain basically washes away the rubber that's been built up over the last 2 days, with both the truck race and the Xfinity race, all the practices, qualifying, and all that kind of stuff. So you basically have a green race track, and just because it's a track that hasn't been paved for a long, long time, it brings out the character probably of the track more than anything, because if you don't have that rubber there that's laid down from previous days, you're going to have a problem with getting grip. That's part of the reason why NASCAR called the competition yellow. What was it, 30 laps into the race, I believe it was. So again, it's the same at pretty much any track, but Bristol is, it's Atlanta rather. It's a little magnified because it is an older surface that hasn't been used for a while. But the thing is that drivers just love racing at that racetrack. It's one of the fastest, even though it's one of the bumpiest. It's still one of the fastest and one of the most prolific tracks we have on the schedule.
The average time was the average speed was 143 miles an hour and change. If you want to get into it, 143.0.71 miles an hour and such. But, there was a difference, I thought, from Daytona. I think everybody thought this, because Ford's dominated. They had the top 3 finishes. And Chevy, which won in Daytona, did not cut. They finished 8th. That was their highest. I guess it's too early to tell about how the pony car, how the Camaro is going to do and all this, but why such a dramatic drop-off from the Chevys from one race to the other, in your opinion, Jerry Bonkowski?
Well, I think one of the things is that, we're not at a restricted place track. We're at a regular track. They call it a regular mile and a half, and I think that, it's going to take a few races for the Camaro rather, to work its way into into things, if you will. I mean, Ryan Newman got he almost had the pole until Kyle Busch stole it away from him, but they showed the strength and the horsepower that the Camaros have. But I think you're going to probably need to get to maybe even Bristol or maybe a few races even after that before you really can tell
Now, I know also Harvick, they said he honored Dale Earnhardt Sr. at the track. Can you sort of elaborate on that? Tell us how he honored the Intimidator?
Well, I was kind of surprised about it, but there's a real big reason for that because, obviously when Dale Earnhardt tragically was killed in the 2001 Daytona 500, Kevin Harvick was the guy that Richard Childress picked to replace him.
Mm-hmm.
I want to use the word replace to take Dale's spot in 3, and of course they switched that number over to the 29 because they didn't want to run the 3 again. But I mean, Harvick after the race, he stuck out 3 fingers out the window. He had the fans, remembering Dale Earnhardt Sr. I mean, remember, it's been 17 years since Dale Earnhardt Sr. left us. I mean, it seems like only yesterday, and it's been almost 2 decades. So it was a classy move on Harvick's part. I think it was unexpected by a lot of people, but he got a lot of kudos and a lot of credits for what he did.
Well, look, I know that when Michael Thomas, who was the 66-year-old that ran in Daytona, he was one of only 3 drivers that had actually competed against Dale Earnhardt Sr. But on the other hand, I remember reading about that, and forgive me for asking you about perhaps a week-old story, Jerry Bonkowski, but I guess one of the things that sort of bothered me is that the way that he said, well, he's going to start 40th, he's going to hang around the back of the pack and all this. And I guess that bothered me, that you didn't have a car really going for a victory, that sort of thing. Do you think that those cars at the back of the track, that maybe the field should be a little bit shorter, especially now with it's so difficult to get full-time sponsorship? I mean, it seems to me that somebody like Thomas, nice story that he's racing, but just clogging up the track. What are your thoughts there?
No, I mean, if you have a car, if you have a team, you should have a right to run. You may not have the same kind of power as the Hendrick Motorsports or Stewart Haas Racing or Joe Gibbs Racing or any other team like that, but you should be entitled to race. But the one thing I found interesting, Marky, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the Atlanta race only had a 36-car field.
Yeah, that's true.
That surprised the heck out of me because that's got to be like the lowest field I think we've had in a long time. And I mean, I would have thought that you'd see less cars at Daytona just because it's such a big race. That's also a very difficult race to prepare for. I would have thought you would see more cars at Atlanta because it's a quote unquote traditional race. It's a mile and a half, no restrictor plates, that kind of thing. But to see only 36 cars, that is troubling for sure.
Well, you mentioned that, and in a speedway like Atlanta, I can certainly see that. I guess I go back to when I recall you'd have 42 or 43 on what was then the Winston Cup circuit, but in Bristol they would have about 37. And to me that just made sense. Smaller track, why do you want to clog up the field? It seems like there's more risk of catastrophe. And I guess, in Atlanta, maybe not so much, but in a place like Bristol, what do you think? I mean, would there be a benefit to having a smaller field just for the safety for the drivers?
Well, honestly, Bristol is such a unique track that to me, if you have 36, if you have 40, if you have 43, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. I mean, Bristol, it's a very traditional kind of race in the sense that, they've been there so many times. Yeah, there's been a few repays and a few adjustments in the track itself, but, to have a smaller field, to me, it doesn't make that much of a difference to me. I mean, I'm sure, like, maybe to you or some other people it might make a difference, but to me, I just think that, if you can accommodate 40 cars, or if you can accommodate 43, certainly you can accommodate 36. I think that, we're going to probably see, I'd be willing to bet maybe 42, 43 cars try to make the 40-car field for Bristol. But again, Atlanta, like I said, it surprised the heck out of me, and, I hope this is not a trend going forward where we're only going to see, 36 or 37 cars in a field rather than a full 40-car field.
Jerry, I'm going to dig up a few bones here. Elliott Sadler, I remember when he was on the Top Series, I guess it was then the Sprint. He's now in the Xfinity Series, leading that series in points, just missed out on in Daytona. I mean, photo finish at the end in what some say was I guess it was the closest race in stock car racing history. But I'm just, forgive me here, how did Elliott Sadler, a very legitimate Top Series, then like I said, Sprint Cup, fall down to Xfinity?
Well, it wasn't so much that he fell. I mean, it was just a matter of opportunity and sponsorship. Back in the day, when he did try to continue his Cup career, there just wasn't a ride there. I mean, remember, this is when the economy started getting really bad. You had to basically take whatever you could get. And Elliott, rather than being sidelined, he decided that he would take offers to race in the Xfinity Series because, the old saying, out of sight, out of mind. If he's not racing, regardless of if it's the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, or the Truck Series, he's going to be forgotten. People are going to forget about him. And, one of the main advantages of having the Xfinity Series is that if there's a Cup driver that gets, God forbid, gets in a bad wreck and can't race for several weeks, well, where do you look for a replacement for him? You can't look for him already in the Cup Series because guys are probably already out there. So Xfinity would be the first place you would look at. I mean, look at how Regan Smith replaced Tony Stewart when Tony Stewart got hurt there for a while. And other drivers as well, too, that have replaced other drivers that have been hurt. So, it's a good thing for Stadler. And he came so close to winning the championship last year. And then actually the second time he came, real close to winning it. And, I just hope the guy gets the championship. He deserves it. He really, really deserves it in my mind.
And Sadler, that's very intriguing. You say he gets the championship because he is quite, he's been on there and for some time, I even remember Hermie Sadler from Emporia, where driving on, I guess it wasn't the Xfinity Series, it may still have been the Busch Grand National, but that 54 car, Virginia is for Lovers, and it was, he was from Emporia, and I was just like, yeah, that's right. That's right. Remember, Jerry Bonkowski, part of the Tri-Cities are in Virginia, Bristol, Virginia, certainly. Hey, what's this word of a Jeff Gordon comeback? I mean, could we be seeing him? I know he relieved a couple of years ago Little Lee, but could he be returning to full-time racing?
No, he won't be coming to full-time. I mean, he talked over the weekend about possibly driving a truck at Martinsville just because there's an opportunity there. He thought it'd be fun. Martinsville's a great place to race. I'd love to see it. I think that it would be great to see him race, and maybe that might convince other drivers who have retired or are sidelined. Maybe come back and race periodically here or there in a truck. I'd love to see Dale Earnhardt Jr. in a truck.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would be a big draw, and then certainly the series would welcome to have a big name like that. To draw more fans to the stands. So I don't know if Gordon's really going to pull off the Martinsville truck race or not, but if he does, I think it'd be a win-win for everybody in that regard.
Well, we're talking to Jerry Bonkowski, and I guess the series, the third week, goes to Las Vegas. This is the first time, I guess, where Las Vegas has two races. They took one away from New Hampshire, and we've talked a lot about how some of the bigger markets are, eliminating some of the smaller ones or some of the older tracks and all this. Las Vegas, what's unique so far about this track? It's newer, but what sets it apart?
It's just a unique atmosphere. It's a unique racetrack. They've got the infield, the way what they call it, I'm drawing a blank now. I can't think of it now. There's a nickname for the infield. I mean, there's a lot of things going on there. Las Vegas is a track that really attracts a lot of fans, not only from the Las Vegas area, which is, of course, where guys like Kurt Busch and Kyle Busch and Brendan Gaughan are from, but it also attracts fans from California, from Utah, a lot of the surrounding Arizona, a lot of the surrounding states as well, too. And plus, you've got a lot of external draws because you've got typically fairly affordable hotel rooms because there's so many hotels in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all the entertainment there, you got all the food there. So they think that Las Vegas was such a track that it was so popular with the fans that for many years there's been a discussion about when are they going to have a second race, and they eventually got that second race, and they'll have it this year. So I think that you hate to see New Hampshire lose a race, but at the same time, what New Hampshire couldn't give,
I guess it's not that new. I guess it's been around, 96 or so. But, yeah, I guess I'm also of the era when I remember driving by Wilkesboro, North Carolina, because it's not that far away from Johnson City, on my way to Winston-Salem, and seeing a still operative Wilkesboro track. And I guess that was around 96 when that went off the circuit as well. So that's the sort of thing right there. Anyway, Jerry, it's always a great time to talk to you and get caught up with racing. We've had a couple of pretty decent races there, Harvick's dominance, as well as, a crash-filled but exciting Daytona 500. Look forward to talking to you again later on and following NASCAR. You can read his work on NBCSports.com. Could gambling be coming to baseball and pro basketball? I mean, in a real big legalized way. For that matter, could pari-mutuels come to the NASCAR track? Well, that's a little far off, but if you're going to be in Vegas, I guess I could throw that out. Tri-City Sports Now answers that question after this.